I grew up in an abusive household, and unfortunately, as a result, I've lost contact with a lot of my older brothers and sisters. I'm one of 8 children. They were born in Greece, but I was born here. But it was like 1950s Greece in my house. It was hardcore.
Welcome to another episode of the Refined Real Estate Podcast. It's Manny here with my co-host Ian. Janelle sadly couldn't be here. We have a very special episode today with a close friend of ours and local real estate investor named Nick Skalkos. Before we get into that, I would like you all to please, if you have a moment, go to our YouTube channel and subscribe. Subscribe, leave a comment, follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all of those things. Also, a little bit about ourselves. Me, Ian, and Janelle, we are investors in Halifax, Nova Scotia. We've been investing here and in America for the past 5-6 years. We have over 60 plus doors amongst the three of us. Ian and Janelle are very successful mortgage brokers with the Blake Wilson Group. And yeah, that's just about it. Ian, what was your favorite thing about our conversation with Nick?
Oh man, so many good tidbits, guys. You're really in for a good show here. Nick is just such a high energy guy. I'm never not smiling when I'm around him. He's infectious. So this is just a quick glimpse into what he's up to, what he's about. But just like the energy he brings, just the good spirits, all that stuff, as well as a very talented real estate investor. So guys, look forward to a really good show. Manny, what about yourself?
Oh man, I love Nick. He's one of my favorite people. I've only known him for about a year, but he's just an amazing guy, and just his story from his childhood to where he is now, it's incredibly impressive. His journey will really move some people, and I think you guys will gain a lot of value from this episode. And here we go. We'll dive right into it. Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Refined Real Estate Podcast. It's me, myself, Manny here, and Ian, and our special guest, Nick Skalkos. Nick, welcome to the show.
Hey boys, thank you for having me, and I just want to extend my thank you for welcoming me to Nova Scotia, particularly here in Halifax. You guys really make me feel at home here, and I appreciate that so much. So,
anytime, brother, anytime. Honestly, Nick, I've only known you for a short time. I feel like it's been a year, but I feel like I've known you my whole life. That's just the kind of personality and energy you bring, and it's amazing.
Well,
likewise.
Same goes for both of you. Yeah, both of you. Well, we're going to be friends for life. We already know that.
Nick, I think I told you, man, our first 100%. Zoom call, you said those exact words. I was coming down the stairs and I had you on my phone and you said, Manny, we're going to be friends for life. And my wife heard you in the background. She's like, who is this guy? I've never heard of him in my life. I'm like, that's Nick. He's my friend for life now.
Yeah.
You know, when people are asking who is this guy, I think that's my goal. I really like hearing that, and I also like hanging around people that inspire me, like you guys. So that's why I just know instantly you guys are like working at a high level, and I like that. You know, we're very aligned. We have more in common than I do with another like musician that looks like me, listens to the same music as I do. You two have more in common because our goals are aligned in many different ways, and our mindset has been shifted at some point that brought us together.
Absolutely. Honestly, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Nick, let's take a step back, and why don't you tell our audience about yourself, just a little bit of your history, what brought you into real estate, and what do you got going on right now?
Thank you. Came from immigrant parents from Greece, and I grew up in an abusive household, and unfortunately, as a result, I've lost contact with a lot of my older brothers and sisters. I'm one of 8 children. They were born in Greece, but I was born here. But it was like 1950s Greece in my house. It was hardcore. So we had neighbors that were just sick of hearing the fighting and the yelling and the crying, and they decided to intervene. And they grabbed my mom and her remaining children, me being one of them, and they put us into an ensemble house for battered women and children so that we could just regroup and get separated from my dad and just start from there. So my mom raised us as best as she could. And when I was about 12 years old, she saw that I had a passion for music. I had an older brother that was super influential with inspiring me. I had a couple older brothers that were like paying for my guitar lessons, giving me hand-me-downs and guitars. And I was just completely inspired by music. So for me, I found my goal, like I found my mission pretty early in life. Music was my escape. and I could just shut out the noise. And music brought me so much joy, and I just followed my passion. I wanted to be a drummer, but I couldn't afford a drum kit, so I would just bang on pillows and pots and pans. And my mom just got sick of it, and it's just like she got one of these like waist height Coke bottle piggy banks, and she just started collecting loonies until she collected around 1,000. Bought me a drum kit, and then the rest was history. I started a band, and I thought we were going to be like the biggest. I thought we were going to be the next U2, but we were not that good. And I realized that, damn, this is going to be some hard work. So it took us 9 years of getting the door slammed in our face, rejection letters from every label you could imagine, bar owners just telling us we were awful. And then the script started to flip. Bar owners were telling us that we were pretty good, and they wanted to invite us into more shows. And I think I love sharing this story because this is a story of persistence and not giving up. Everyone just sees my wins, and they see these platinum records on my back wall here, but they don't see all the failures that I have endured and all of the rejection that I have faced. And you just can't get emotional about that stuff. You just got to keep at it and keep going. So eventually, I found it really hard to figure out, like, how am I going to do this? I had a label call me from California, and they loved our stuff, and they asked me who the manager was, and I said it was me, the drummer. And that's where everything just like fell apart. And I was just like, I need a manager. I can't be representing myself. So one day in walks this tornado of personality. This guy was so charismatic, that covered in tattoos, talked LA, and I was just enamored. Whenever there was a band meeting, and he would talk, we were just in awe at him. Like, we were just captivated by him. He's since gone on to become a TV personality, which is really great because he's an awesome host of a TV show. But he managed to whip up so much interest in our band that he ended up creating like a bidding war among all the major labels in Canada. I had EMI, BMI, like Universal Records, Warner, everyone out at our concerts trying to wine and dine us, taking us out, getting us drunk, coming back to our hotel rooms. We're all best buddies. Like, it was crazy times. And in 2003, we ended up signing with Universal Records. And that's when things exploded. Our deal was quite large. So instantly we were added in medium high rotation in major rock outlets across Canada, all the large radio stations and Much Music, which was relevant at the time, started spinning our videos like nonstop. And all of a sudden we were everywhere, on front page magazines, on every radio dial, all over your TV. And we were coming to your town every 2 months, and we were opening for bands that inspired me to like play music, and all of a sudden I'm sharing the stage with like 5440 and David Wilcox and April Wine and Tea Party and Matt Good and Sam Roberts and Sum 41 and Jane's Addiction and the Pixies, and it was crazy. It was mayhem. And it all started when a pivotal moment was when I went to my manager's house to figure out how to do this. And I asked him, how are we going to bust into the music industry? And he was like, no, man, it's who do we need to know? And he began to write down a list of people that we needed to know. And that changed everything for me, because here I am today, a real estate investor, and I'll get into how the hell that happened. But I still apply that today. Like, when I'm overwhelmed with how am I going to climb this sheer cliff mountain that I didn't even see at the beginning of my journey. I didn't know I'd be climbing this damn thing, but I'm climbing it now. So how the hell am I going to do that? I know that how am I going to do that is the wrong answer. I know that it leads to inaction, and it can grip you. And I know that there's so many people in that situation. That's why I love sharing this story. It's simply who, not how. So at any rate, how did I become, a platinum recording artist, like into a real estate investor? And it all started with a HGTV show, ironically, called Income Property, because my wife and I were interested in renovations and houses and stuff. But this guy was helping people. He wasn't just putting in a nice like quartz countertop, right? He was just like saying, hey, like, your house poor, you're sitting on a basement, it's a gold mine, it should be a unit. here are two options. And he would convert the basement into, a unit, which was much needed in every city, which is much needed in every city. So that was interesting because my wife and I were watching this show obsessively in a house that had a side entrance, that had an income suite in the basement, it had bathrooms down there. And we were just watching the show being like, huh, interesting. We were house poor. Credit cards were getting out of line. Like, we didn't really have a plan. Our plan was potentially refinance and just keep using our house as an ATM machine. And I saw that this guy, who is Scott McGilvery, come to town, and I was just like, well, let's go to town. I mean, and watch him. I like his show. He's handsome and he's charismatic too, and I like that. So maybe I'll take a picture with him or something. Be great. So I went down, saw him talk about how he created wealth through borrowing his student funds to purchase student rentals and live in them rather than rent them. And by the time he was 25, he had 25 properties, which is absolutely incredible, and he was just saying, like, he was just talking about how people think of money and then how he looks at money. And everything made so much sense to me. And then I was just like, okay, screw the picture. Like, I want to learn more about real estate, like what's going on here. So I reluctantly bought into a program, and I did so. I was reluctant because I thought that I just needed some information and then I can go ahead and do this thing. And that's one of the biggest mistakes people make, is that they just think they need info, watch YouTube or something. And that was me, and I was just like, this is a sell. I just came here for a picture. What's going on? And I was just very negative about the whole thing. So my wife was just like, listen, I hate my job. I'm not waiting till I'm 65 to retire. So you have time. You're going to figure this thing out. I'm going to go back to my job and figure this out later. No pressure, right? So I did. I was comfortable. That's why I didn't really care. Life was okay. I had already reserved the fact that I was going to be a broke musician. I had reconciled that, and it's all good. As long as the material I was releasing was bomb, then we're good. We're good. But it was at that moment that I was like, hey, Sarah doesn't like her situation, and I can do something about that. And I like this idea of having money and being wealthy. This could be good. So I began the process of mentorship, education, and joining a community, which was by far the most mind-blowing, game-changing experience I've ever had. My friends started to change. I started swimming in circles of people that were being successful in real estate, and I was watching what they were doing, and inevitably that rubbed off on me. So in 2016, I purchased my first real estate program. My first investment was in myself. It wasn't in a property. I learned how to use other people's money. I leveraged other people for the contracting. I leveraged everything I could. And I got into a home with using none of my own money, convincing the contractor to get paid at refinance. Got tenants in upstairs before the first mortgage payment came out because I didn't have the money to pay it. Sarah and I are living in the basement. And, it was rough. Like, we had a tenant that hadn't paid for 5 months. We were holding 2 mortgages. I was just getting into real estate, and the straw was like snapped. Like, it wasn't good. It was not good. So I think a lot of people at that point would have just been like, this ain't for me. Bad tenants. I'm covering 2 mortgages right now. It's renovations. I've got my job. I've got my kid. I can't do this. But I didn't. I just persevered because I know you have to. You can't just give up. So I started by house hacking, thinking that that was going to be my strategy. And I'll just live in the basement and convert single family homes into duplexes, rent out the upstairs, do a refinance, recycle that money, repeat the BRRRR strategy. And then I started dealing with the city, and it was insane. Dealing with the city is like, what I was endeavoring in was one of the most complicated real estate strategies that you could do. But I'm glad I did it. I just haven't pursued that moving forward. I did a couple. It served its purpose, but I found that my market was really tough to make numbers make sense. So I was sort of forced to move outside of my parameter that I was comfortable with, which was an uncomfortable thing to do, which is important that you continue to do stuff like that. And I learned how to use other people's money. I learned how to invest out of province. and I discovered multifamily investing. And I discovered that they don't have to qualify you based on income, which worked for me because I never really had good quality income. And that's when things really started to scale. So from 2017, I went into the basement apartment, did a BRRRR. 2018, I did a JV on another duplex, and then I bought some buy and hold with some family. 2019, I learned how to invest out of province. 2020, I did nothing. I thought I wasn't even really investing at all. I was doing more music stuff. Actually did the theme song for an HGTV show called Vacation House Rules, which is Scott McGilvery's show. So like things came full circle there. And I started working with him, which was amazing. But I wasn't doing any real estate investing. And during the pandemic, I just found an opportunity to just level up. I found a good reason. You know, I have a real purpose now. I found a new purpose to invest in real estate, and it has a give back component. And I started investing in multifamily hardcore in 2021. And I started buying apartment buildings across Canada through realtors, through property managers, and through some wholesalers, including Ian Armour, our fabulous host for today's podcast. So, Ian, thank you for the building that you sold us. It's one of the best buildings that we have right now. It's a 12 unit in Nova Scotia, and it's rocking it. So where am I at right now? I honestly don't know how many doors I have, and it's only because like we're selling some at the moment, but I have over 200. I got over 200 doors, and they span across 4 different provinces and 1 state, with the largest one being a 144 unit in Houston, Texas that my partners and I just acquired about 2 weeks ago. So yeah, that's where we're at.
Wow. There's a lot to unpack there, Nick.
Yeah, where to start?
I want to go back to the very beginning of your story, you know, just your upbringing and how that kind of promoted the resiliency within you, honestly, because that's like one of the biggest traits that I have heard about like ultra successful people having, is just that inner belief in themselves and that resilience, you know, like people that have had similar childhoods as you would have given up, and they would have just been, you know, they wouldn't have accomplished much in their life and they would blame it on their circumstances, but not yourself. You're like, nope, that is not where I want my life to go, and I am gonna be wealthy. I'm gonna be successful no matter what, you know, and that's amazing. I find it impressive, you know, like very, very impressive when people can overcome those immense challenges to be as uber successful as you have become. My question would be like, what do you think gave you that resiliency? Like where did that stem from? How did you know that you were going to be something big one day?
Oh, sheer determination. I manifested it. I had people that I wanted to emulate on my walls, you know, I'd stare at them. I wanted to be them. I eventually became them. So you just need to accept that you're going to be that person. You may as well just start now. Walking like them, thinking like them, looking like them, dressing like them. Well, how do they wake up? What do they do with their time? You know, that's how it started. And you can't have a plan B. That's the other thing. Like, I was up against a wall. I came from dirt, nothing, and that was it. Like that was my wall. I was up against it. Most people are comfortable, and being comfortable, like, good is the enemy of great. You know, it really is. And most people are comfortable, so they just settle for the life that they have. And it's a complete result of their limited beliefs and their lack of knowledge on how to do it. But mainly their limited beliefs, which I, believe it or not, struggle with every day still. So it was getting into a real estate network and having other people support me for once and encourage me that helped me get over my limited beliefs that, hey, like, I am a real estate investor. And you just become the person you need to be.
Awesome.
No, that's great.
It's amazing.
So then let's also dive into early real estate days. So I know a lot of people listening to this podcast might be struggling to get going, might not know what the step is. They see and hear about your story, and they're like, okay, how can I bring that to my life? So for someone that maybe has a house, maybe another house, what would be your concrete next steps for them to help grow in this industry?
Yeah, get out of the residential space and get into the multifamily space. stop doing everything yourself, because you're just going to trap yourself by working in your business rather than scaling in your business. Pick a lane, figure out what it is that you like to do, and just hone in on that. Similar to what you guys are doing right now with your US property, and then partnering up with other people that perhaps you could leverage. Maybe they know a little bit more about you, about whatever you're investing in than you do. They're great partners. But then you got to ask yourself, well, what value add do you bring to the table? So you need to just sort that out. Often, and then this is all I basically gave everyone 4 steps on how to scale their business, but there's a 5th step that's going to prevent them from doing that, and that's themselves. They need to step over themselves and get themselves, they need to get out of their own way and realize that, hey, I'm in real estate investing for the returns that real estate investing provides, whereas most people feel they need to own an asset and they need to be the landlord and they need to have control of that building. Whereas the reality is that you could probably get better returns by investing passively with a group of people that know what they're doing, rather than being a landlord on these 2 single family homes and having to deal with cat lady and having to deal with midnight runs and broken windows and roof leaks and you name it. Like, the same return. So why would you do that? Why would you be the landlord in something and get the same returns as when you could just invested that passively into something? So that's the first mistake people make, is that they feel they need to be the landlord. And then what happens is they'll get a bad tenant, they'll do it wrong, they'll get the wrong financing, they'll have the wrong asset, they've overpaid. All of these things start to squeeze as inflation rates rise, mortgage rates rise, everything's rising, rental caps on stuff. Like, it's not easy, and so they make mistakes, and then they're like, well, this real estate investing sucks, I'm out, so if you've got a couple homes and if you're not educated, then get educated. If you are educated and you have joined a program, join another one. Why do you have to pick one? Like, I'm a part of everything, and because I'm serious, and it's setting money aside to join programs is life changing. You just got to do something with it, and you got to be out there and you got to be active. If you got a couple of properties, I say watch out, because you might fall into the trap of thinking that you know what you're doing. I've got a couple of properties, I'm good. Like, I hear that all the time, and I'm just like, wow, some people that have like 2-3 properties, they're the toughest nut to crack in regards to like you're getting in your own way here, and you could do much more than what you're doing. So yeah, I say continue your education if you already have education, and if you don't, then do that. Pull out some of the equity in your home, buy some. That should be your next investment.
Man, Nick, you are so right. I know so many people, especially like locals, that, they've built up a small little portfolio of themselves, up to 20 units, but they've done it all by themselves, and they think they know everything. And the thing is, they're very successful, and they've built themselves a nice nest egg, but to level up to that next level, they have to give up some control, like this 144 unit you just bought with your partners. How hard would that be to do by yourself? Like, that would take, years and years of building up that kind of cash and that net worth. I think that's a great tip that you gave the people, and I hope that people take that to heart. I have a question for you. This is a personal question. I meant to ask you last weekend, but I forgot. So you are very good at raising money. That's something you specialize in. How do you, when you're raising money from investors, convince them to take a smaller equity position on a bigger deal? Most people, they're used to having a bigger piece of the pie. Like you said, a lot of them, they own everything by themselves, or maybe they have 50-50 JV with somebody else. But let's say you have a 10, 15, $20 million deal, and now like their 100, 200K, whatever, is only going to really amount to, a couple of percent of equity, maybe 5% even. How can you convince them to like change their mindset to realizing like that this small equity position in reality is much better than me owning 50% or 100% of like a duplex, triplex, fourplex type of thing?
Well, this is exactly what I was talking about before. The person with that feeling the need to own that duplex or that single family home when they could have just received the same amount of returns from a passive investment. They haven't gotten over the mindset piece yet. And basically, you can, to me, it's as simple as this. Like, would you rather have half a grape or a slice of a goddamn watermelon. Like it's I like watermelon, so I'm into the watermelon. Bigger piece too. So like yeah, so that's it. It's a mindset thing, and you know, good can get in the way of great. And I think if that person doesn't acknowledge any of that we just said, then they're not even coachable to a degree. So it's just figure out, like, if that's you, if you're listening right now and you're just like, damn, that's me, then just fucking own up to it.
Yeah.
You know, that's it. And scale up.
Would you say like at the core, then it's like
100%.
the return? Like the return should be the ultimate like deciding factor. Like if I'm gonna make more money owning 5% of this, you know, $20 million deal versus owning 100% of this $2 million deal. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how you'd.
Yeah. So for me, you know, and I'm around investors like that, and I'll encourage them and help them where I can. But partnering with investors like that is tough. You know, they put a lot of pressure on me, like what's going on with the money. Let me see their performa, and I want to deal with investors that would don't even know how to read the performa. They're just like, here's my money, Nick. Like, I trust you. You know, here you go. So it's a different investor profile. You know, if someone needs to be convinced that passively investing in a 144 unit in Houston isn't as good as, you know, being the landlord in that duplex across the street, then I'm not even going to bother.
Gotcha.
You know, they need to realize why they're investing in real estate, you know, and they think it's so that they can lick that brick and say that I'm owning it, but it's not. It's the lifestyle that real estate provides us, and you can't realize that if you're working in your business, spending all your time doing that. So it doesn't make sense to me.
Yep. Perfect. That's awesome. Awesome
Absolutely.
answer. I appreciate that.
Yeah, so I guess the next question I'm sure a lot of people are wondering about is about that 144 unit in Texas there. So if you don't mind, maybe go into a little bit more detail, how you found it, partners, their types of roles, that type of stuff.
Yeah, basically, we've been after this place. We put our first offer in November, and it's July now. So, and we started our search in February in Florida. And what we were seeing were syndicators were inflating rents on their projections to make the returns look great, and forcing some of the tenants in some of these areas to pay these ridiculous rents, which were above the median household in that area. So when we started looking in Florida, we saw this, and it was tough, right? It was tough to lock down a property. Stuff was just slipping for way higher than we were willing to pay. So you know, it's important to not have your feet planted in a particular market when you're doing this kind of value add strategy, because there may be opportunities somewhere else. And in this case, there were opportunities left and right in Texas. So even though our intention was to invest in Florida, we pivoted to Texas because it's the path of least resistance. Why try and fit a square in a hole when you can fit a circle in a circle over there? So anyway, you know my point. So we went over to Texas, and there was an abundance of deals, but it varies from street to street, right? You've got like an amazing area, and then one street over you have a war zone. So for me, and then realtors, like, if they can pick up a Canadian right away, and they want to know that they're dealing with serious buyers. So there's no way that I could confidently find a property and then deal with a realtor and then understand the lingo that they're using and then put down hard money that I could lose if I didn't follow through. Like, it was insane, you know. So I teamed up with Marcin Drodes because he has 15 years of experience of raising capital and buying apartment buildings in the States. He knows how to structure it. He knows how to talk to realtors, and he was relentless, but he wasn't compromising. He wasn't going to compromise price, and it, you know, when you're in it, like, you've been looking for properties for a year, that can get a little frustrating. It's like, I saw a couple of properties that I personally would have jumped on, but Marcin didn't, you know. And I think for me, I just got schooled in how to do it, because what ended up happening is like textbook. Like, I've heard these stories before of how to negotiate apartment building, but I've never actually witnessed it the way I just did. And there was a lot of poise and restraint happening here, and it was impressive to watch. So this 144 unit, it's in Houston, has an MSA of around 7 million people. I'm used to investing in cities that have 100,000, so this was a new world. They're like, I think there's the Port of Houston employs close to 67,000 people alone. I have buildings in towns with like 30,000 people in them. So there's an inherent risk when investing in small towns. And there are so many jobs and opportunities in the States that it's landlord friendly. People are moving, feet are moving into Texas. People are moving into Texas. Their population increase there is undeniable. It's one of the biggest growing states in the city. So we look at immigration, we look at mixed labor force, we look at population growth, and the numbers made sense in Texas. So it was this 144 unit. We put an offer in for 16 million, and they accepted. We didn't know they wanted 16. We put in a lower offer. Someone else, they accepted an offer at 16 million. Well, we walked away from it. Okay, it's done. Like, let's move on. Let's not cry about it. It's not emotional. You got to be like, let it go. Well, that deal fell through. So then they came back to us, and we were like, yeah, okay. We're not going to offer close to 16 now, though. We're going to offer you maybe 14. So they rejected our offer, and they accepted someone else's offer at like 14.5. And we're like, okay, well, there you go. Well, that deal fell through, and this has been happening since November. So they came back to us, and that's when they realized that it's not about the offer. It's about, can these people close? Because it's hard to close in an apartment building. You need a key principal that's going to put up the collateral. You need a lot of knowledge and a lot of money to come to the table. And financing can be tough. We ran into financing issues all the way to the last day. It was really tough. But the seller took a lower amount because he knew that these guys can close. And that actually meant more than a higher offer. So, that was key. We did our due diligence on the place. We couldn't find any capital expenditures that were going to sink the deal. And it's a value add, but you wouldn't think it requires all the construction, like all the renovations that a normal value add would. It's more of like a mismanaged opportunity here where we can just simply, it's just like remanage it and then bring the value up through proper management, proper tenants, proper upkeep, and just creating a place that people can call home and be proud of it. And it doesn't really require a lot of renovations. It's been mismanaged, and it's basically one of the best opportunities I've ever come across for that reason as well. So we bought it for 5 million under value, basically. Doesn't need a ton of renos. It's just mismanaged. Like, it's really a textbook. It's a textbook story.
No, man, it's an amazing deal. I remember when I saw it, I texted Ian or I called him the next day. I'm like, man, Ian, this deal is crazy. Like, this is the kind of deals that we need to be a part of. Forget these $2 million deals. Let's go find a nice $10 million deal, $5 million under the actual value. You do one or two of these or three, like Marcin was saying, and you're set. One of these can change your life. Let alone two or three of these, or two or three of them a year.
Yeah. Yeah, and the cool thing about it too is that you have a big team, because the economies of scale allow for us to hire people to go into all the units and really do an analysis of what's wrong, electrical, plumbing, give us like, it's crazy. And I don't have to whip up a shareholders agreement. I don't have to create a corporation. I don't have to be the asset manager. Like, I can just pick my lane, which is basically investor relations, is my lane, and business development. I'm pretty good at that. And then raising capital.
No, it's amazing. The economies of scale of it. Having a team like you guys have is just so impressive. And it's something that me and Ian would like to emulate here in the coming months, because it's just amazing. It's amazing what you guys can do and what you will be able to do. I'm excited to see what your group here does over the next few years, because I'm sure you guys are going to do amazing things.
I hope so. I'm aiming. I've manifested.
Yeah, I'll manifest it with you, man. We'll be there with you.
Thanks, brother.
Nick,
Thanks,
I know
guys.
you're tight on time today, but I want to thank you for joining us. This has been amazing. Do you have any parting words of wisdom to give to our people? You've already given us so much, but can we have one more?
Well, first of all, I just want to thank you for having me on, and I would love to do this again. We can dive into other aspects of this.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I love. I just try. I'm right now. I'm remembering me when I first started, and I was really stubborn, and I was really negative about investing in education and coaching. And I'm not selling anything here, but I'm telling you, if you're listening right now and you haven't invested in education and mentorship or masterminds or a community, basically the community. It's not even about the education because that's just training wheels. That just comes off. It's all about people. Here's my takeaway. Real estate investing is actually just a series of conversations. And when you get to that level, now you're talking. Now you're creating wealth here. Now you have a business that you can walk away from and still have it scale. So that's it. Real estate investing is just simply a series of conversations.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again, Nick. It's been an honor of having you here. And yeah, we'll have you back sometime soon for sure. We'll dive into some things more in depth because there's just so much to unpack. It's hard to do in just a 45-minute conversation.
It's great. Ian, Manny, love you guys. Love what you're doing. I'm a huge fan of both of you. So anytime you want to connect, let me know. I'm down.
Absolutely. Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Cheers. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Refined Real Estate Podcast. That was an amazing episode with our good friend and local investor, Nick Skalkos. He's doing some amazing things. If you want to get a hold of Nick, by any means, you can reach him on, I'm sure, any of his social media platforms. If you search his name, Nick Skalkos, on Instagram, Facebook, you'll find him. We'll put his handle in our show notes. Thank you again for listening. I hope you learned a lot from Nick and from us. Give this episode a like, a share, a subscribe, all of that. See you next week.